Okay. All right. So first of all, just to give a very short background about myself, I am Rudolf Kotik, born in Vienna, Austria, in franchising since 1978. It all started with me with McDonald's, and then was franchise director of Hadid Inn and did franchise marketing and franchise development with ASCAT in the Philippines since 1995, operating active franchise consultancy. And we opened Gofran as a marketing arm, particularly for the clients of active franchise consultancy and for special developments. Next, please. So let's talk about business format franchising. What is actually a franchise the way we know it? It's a contractual relationship between two parties, the franchisor on the one end and the franchisee on the other end. So it's a contractual relationship between the franchisor and the franchisee for the distribution of services and products. And the franchisor allows the franchisee to use the business system, trademarks, and corporate entity for the period of contracts. And of course, for which he has to pay a franchise fee. And the franchisee purchases the experience, expertise, and method of doing business, and doesn't have to go to the startup of a new company. Next, please. Generally speaking, each franchisee is legally independent from the franchisor. The franchisor actually controls what a franchisee is allowed to sell. To go back the legal independence of each franchisee, every franchisee has to get their own business registration. They have to get their own TTI under their own name. They have to get their own mayor's permit under in the LGU. So what actually binds franchisor and franchisee is the franchise agreement. But legally, every franchisee is an independent entity towards the government. Franchisor controls the products and the services that the franchisee are permitted to sell. So a franchisee cannot just simply add a product or cannot take out a product because he doesn't like to sell it. That can be done. Also, the franchisor controls the operating assets, goods and services utilized by the franchisee. And this is done through the procurement program. The procurement program is the list of the authorized suppliers and supplies from where a franchisee has to purchase. Also, we're talking in a franchise system of an exclusive or protected territory, meaning to say there's usually a certain radius around the franchise facilities where no other franchise outlet or company outlet is allowed to be established. And of course, every franchisee has to secure their own location unless the franchisor has already location available for them. Next, please. So what does a franchise provide if you buy a franchise? First of all, the system standards, the way how to operate the business. There's no difference between a franchise outlet and a company outlet. They should all function the same way. Second is the use of the trademark. What is a trademark actually? A trademark is a registration of the logo, of slogans, of names with the Intellectual Property Office. So every franchisor has to register their logo with the Intellectual Property Office. We only have one in the Philippines, which is McKinley Hills, and there a franchisor gets his trademark registration, or we do it for them. Very important that if you buy a franchise, that the franchisee has a trademark which he then allows the franchisee to use. While legally he's actually an independent entity, but he's using the trademark so that he can use the logo of the franchisor at the entrance of the store or at the card or on the product, etc., etc. And of course, also the franchisor gives experience and the wisdom of the franchisor to his franchisees. Every franchisor provides an operations manual An operations manual should have at least 400 to 1200 pages. And then, of course, every franchisor has to provide training as well. By training, we understand that the franchisor provides the training before the franchisee can start his franchise facility. How long the training takes depends on how complex the business is. If it is a cart to kiosk, it might only 3 to 5 days. If it's a restaurant or a salon, it might take up to a whole month. So it really depends on how complex the business is, on how long the training of the franchisee will take. Next, please. Of course, a franchisor will also give site selection assistance. That means that the franchisor will give the applicant the idea on what kind of locations they have to be looking for. How many square meter? How many meter frontage on the store? How many passengers will be passing by every day? How many vehicles are passing by? So all these factors are necessary to be known by an applicant so that he can find the right location. Then once the franchisee found the right location, the franchisor has to either approve it or disapprove it. So if it's a good location, of course, the franchisor will be happy to approve it. If it is a lousy location, a franchisor will also be happy to disapprove it. And if a franchisor disapproves a location, an applicant should not be mad about it, because a franchisor should know best if a location is good. Of course, the franchisor has to provide us a store layout, depending on the square meter. So if there is a certain size required, that's like 50 square meter with a 4-meter frontage, that store layout will be configured for that. If the franchisee has a bigger store, for example, then he has to adapt the layout to his square meters. But before he can actually start the construction, the franchisor has to approve the final layout. Of course, in some cases, which is by big tickets, like in our cases, construction like a National Bookstore or Jerry's Grill, or they provide construction supervision of Phoenix Petroleum. And then, of course, also the exclusive territory, what I explained already earlier, the radius around the franchise facility, which can be a very small radius when it comes to big shops or when it comes to convenience stores, but will be a bigger radius when it comes to more on vehicular-based franchises. That can also be the mall if it's mall-based. So the mall itself becomes the radius. Next, please. The procurement program is the list of the authorized suppliers and supplies from where the franchisor has to purchase. Very important. Also very important that every franchisor provides opening assistance to the franchisees. Opening assistance means when the franchise outlet is ready to start the operation, a representative from the franchisor is with the franchisee to help them get the ball rolling and get everything started up. How long this opening assistance takes is more or less similar to the training phase. So if it's a simple business like a cart or kiosk, it can be 3 to 5 days. If it's something more complicated, it might be taking a month. So it really depends on the complexity of the business again. Then any kind of marketing strategy a franchisor is doing, a franchisee is allowed to do as well. For effective field service, we understand that a franchisor has to be there whenever the franchisee needs help. And also a franchisee has to be there in case anything goes over in the location. So, and also a franchisee has to visit from time to time his franchise facility. So a franchise has to go around physically to check on the franchise facilities. And of course, also franchises in charge of research and development, coming up with new products, with new methods of doing business, with new marketing schemes, etc., etc. So what are the benefits of buying a franchise? Since you have today a lot of franchise opportunities presented after me, first of all, you receive a proven profitable system for doing business because the franchisor made already money with that. Second is the name recall. Every franchisor starts on a local level, and they become eventually regional, eventually national, and some of them international. Like in our case, we have already more than 30 brands which have already franchises outside the Philippines. And of course, if you get a franchisee when they're still on the local level, it's still the cheapest franchise because once, as stronger the brand goes, the higher the franchise fee. That's the logic behind. So if you buy a franchise while they're still on the local level or regional level, the franchise fee in other terms are much better than once they are already very, very well known brand. You can also do it the other way around. You can buy an international brand and then bring them to the Philippines and franchise them out here. Definitely, to get a franchise is less risk than if you have an independent startup. You gain advice in a franchise system because you are never alone. You have always the franchisor whom you can ask. You have also asked the consultant if you need anything from us. So it definitely goes faster also to start a franchise business than an independent startup. John? So what are the pitfalls of franchising? If you buy a franchise from a franchisor which did not invest in a professional development, if you side with a franchisor who does not bother to give you training or has no operations manual, or has an operations manual which is only 10 pages instead of 400, or if you sign up with a franchisor who has no trademark for his business, because that's very dangerous. If your franchisor does not have a trademark, or at least applied for a trademark, the problem is whoever has the trademark can actually run out or trademark infringement. So make sure that you have a trademark for your business. And then for franchise buyers, make sure also your franchisor has a trademark before you sign a franchise agreement, or at least the franchisor has applied for a trademark, because it takes at least 8 months to get a trademark. And the franchisor is actually protected from the moment on he applies for. So a franchisee is already safe if the franchisor has applied for it, even though he hasn't gotten it. All right. Also, if you sign up with a franchisor who doesn't deliver his promises, which unfortunately happens also in the Philippines, we do have a few scammers in the franchise industry. Most of them are in the low cost category, and I'll talk about this later again. All right. The drawbacks of franchising is, of course, payment of fees, because you have to pay franchise fees, you have to pay royalties, you have to pay maybe advertisement shares. Also, a franchisee has to respect the norms and the standards of the concept and the business. Generally, always say, if you're an egocentric personality, don't buy a franchise. Because if an egocentric personality, if everything has to go your way, you will never be successful as a franchisee. As a franchisee, you have to be able to follow the norms and the standards attached to the concept. Therefore, if you can't do that, don't try to get a franchise. But other than that, if you are able to follow other people's rules and regulations, franchising is the perfect way to start a business. Next, please. So how to select a franchise? Examine the opportunities. We have 1,500 franchise companies in the Philippines. Luckily, half of that are my clients. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. First of all, cost of investment. A franchise costs money. You don't get it because you're a good person. So, but it requires a budget. And of course, there's already loans outside available, but that's up to you. But it's very important that the money is secured. The second thing is the interest. You don't have to be an expert in the field you want to franchise. You don't have to be afraid to buy a franchise because you don't know how to do that thing you want to do. I tell you something, at least 99% of all restaurant franchisee only know how to eat. And that's the best requirement. So even though you don't know how to cook, you can still get a restaurant franchise, okay? More important is that you have location, that you are with your business on the right location. Some franchisors have the arrogance of saying, our brand is so strong that we can be at any location, which is not true. If you're in a dead-end street, you're a dead-end street. Okay? Now, when you found a franchisee, you can check the background of the franchisee and support the franchisors giving simply by asking the franchisees. And then you analyze and evaluate before you buy a franchise. John? All right. Why you pay royalties? For the continuation use of the trademark, because you still use the logo continuously. For the continuation use, the assistance by the franchisor, for the ability of the franchisor, in case the franchisee needs assistance of any kind, during office hours, of course, only. And every royalty is always based on gross sales. Gross sales means total sales less VAT, less discounts, let's say senior citizen discounts, and is payable monthly based on that gross sales. Next. And how much has to be paid? Normally, there is no royalty attached to retail franchises, because if the franchise, the merchandise comes from the franchisor 100%, usually there's no more royalty necessary. Drugstores and bake shop, traditionally the lowest royalties. Food franchises usually and restaurants are between 3 to 6. Service franchises usually monthly fixed, what we call a continuation fee, which actually I invented way back 1998. And education have the highest royalty because they don't have a renewal fee for the franchise once the franchise expires. Next, please. So then we have 4 schemes of advertisement. A franchisor might require his franchisees to participate. We have the grand opening marketing, wherein the franchisor has to pay a certain amount for to let people know that they are open. The franchisor is spending that by himself. Okay, that's not paid to the franchisor. Every franchisee is spending that by himself. Also, what we call local store marketing. That is also generally a certain amount of franchisee will be spending to promote the business within his territory. Okay, next please. We have the co-op advertisement. The co-op advertisement, we understand that the group advertisement. Let's say like if there are 5 franchisees in, let's say, in Cagayan de Oro, and they have a billboard together, then this would be a cooperative advertisement that the 5 franchisees would be paying for the billboard. The only advertisement which is actually handled by the franchisor himself is the National Advertisement Fund. If a company is already big enough that they need a National Advertisement Fund for TV, radio, broadsheet ads, where all the franchise outlets and also all company outlets pay equally into the top pot, and then that money is 100% used to promote the brand, the products, the services, any kind of promo. But this is actually not income for a franchisor. All of that has to be spent again for the franchisees. Next, please. What are the mistakes of franchise buyers? First of all, a lot of people believe they don't have to work anymore and just collect money. This is not the right approach if you want to have a franchise for yourself, unless you have a management team for that. Don't underestimate the requirement what it means to be a franchisee. Don't expect also too much from a franchisor. A franchisor is not a babysitter who's there for you 24/7. Okay? And also don't make shortcuts in construction. Some people like to make shortcuts in construction, then they usually get caught, and then they're spending actually more money than they're supposed to spend. Next, please. Also, if you join a bandwagon, a fad, usually a fad lasts only a year, 2 or 3. Believing also a question I get regularly now, if I consider the milk teas bandwagon or a fad, and the pandemic actually categorized that one, that it's already becoming a necessity, because the sales of the milk teas in the last 3 months were so high for deliveries that it cannot be considered anymore a fad. All right, the next thing is, of course, a lot of Filipinos have also the tendency of not wanting to be the first franchise in the system, which is actually wrong. It's very, very good to be the first franchisee, because if you're the first franchisee, you get the TLC treatment, the tender love and care treatment from your franchisor. You're getting a better deal. The stronger the brand, the higher the franchise fee. So if you're the first franchisee, you pay much less a franchise fee compared to being the 100th franchisee. So it's actually a good idea to be the very first franchisee. You most likely make more money. Of course, provided the franchise is properly developed. And also, don't compare only the franchise fee instead of the total investment through the years. Next, please. So geographically, we have 3 types of franchises. First of all, the unit franchise, the typical franchise agreement, 1 contract, 1 outlet, equivalent usually between 5 to 10 years. No, in our eyes, no franchise agreement should be below 3 years. We usually say in our associations, only the scammers are using 1-year contracts or 2-year contracts. We hardly use even 3 years, mostly it's 4 years and up to 10 years for a unit franchise. The next is the area franchise. An area franchise, oops, the other side. Yes, the area franchise is a franchise is getting a territory. So with a territory comes a longer franchise agreement, but it gets exclusive to the territory, which can be a city, a province, or a portion of it, or a region. So, and that comes with what we call a development program. A development program means they have to open a certain number of outlets in a certain period of time. Okay? In order for them to get and to stay exclusive for that territory. And the third geographical type we have is what we call the master franchise. The master franchise, there we talk of a whole country. Right? Unit and area is only for domestic, and master franchise is for a whole country. Usually the contract starts, there is no master franchise below 10 years. Most master franchises are 20, 25 years actually, especially the ones from the US. All the US brands that we have in the Philippines have master franchise agreements from 20 to 25 years. But generally we start to 10, and some hotel franchises go as high as 99 years actually for the hotels. All right, again, if you get a master franchise from abroad, or if you want to bring a Filipino franchise outside in any other country, you will have to follow a development program, which means you have to open a certain number of outlets in a certain period of time. That depends also how big a country is. So if a country is bigger, you may have also a bigger development program compared if it's just a small country, and there might only be a few outlets required. What is important also is if a franchisor allows the master franchisee to sub-franchise. That means the master franchisee becomes the franchisor in his country. If you buy a franchise from abroad, that you can be as a master franchisee, the franchisor in the Philippines, and then sub-franchise to third parties. Okay, and important there is also depending very much on the trademarks, but that's a different story again. Okay, the steps to a franchise. If you're interested to get a franchise, request your franchise kit, fill up the confidential questionnaire completely and send it to the franchisor with the letter of intent. The franchisor will meet and discuss the details. You will be evaluated. You will be then approved or disapproved. If you have been approved, you get the franchise disclosure information. The franchise disclosure information gives you all the information you need as a franchisor. Next. Then, of course, the signing of memorandum of agreement and the payment of administration fee. The franchise location can be inspected and approved, or if it's there, when it comes to it, here it depends now. If it's the location is inside a mall or outside a mall, because if it's inside a mall, the franchisee has to first apply with the mall before actually the contract can be signed. Only the memorandum of agreement can be signed. The memorandum of agreement, apply with the mall. If the mall gives the lease offer, that means they approved you. Then you can sign the franchise agreement. Outside the mall, it's simpler. Apply for location or apply for a franchise, sign the franchise agreement. You can even look for the location if necessary afterwards. So if you sign the franchise agreement, that's the time you have to pay the franchise fee. Then you set up the facility, you undergo the training, you receive the opening assistance from the franchisor, and you have the grand opening of your franchise outlet. Next, please. All right. Generally speaking now about the present situation of COVID and franchising, I would like to tell everybody that it's actually a very good time to buy a franchise. Because, first of all, franchising in the Philippines became popular because of a crisis. We became big in franchising. Actually, the Philippines is a leader in the world in franchising because of the Asian crisis. Way back 1997, when we were hit by the Asian crisis, up to 1997, all franchise brands were foreign. And then the Asian crisis hit us. And then nobody wanted to buy a foreign brand anymore. So the local brands became popular. And because of the Asian crisis, we reached 1,500 franchise companies in the Philippines today. If we wouldn't have had the Asian crisis, franchising wouldn't be as big as it is today. Think of it. During times like this, it's the best way actually to engage into franchising. Because right now, a lot of franchise brands have some discounts for the franchise fees because of the pandemic. Also, locations. It's very easy actually to talk right now to landlords because of the situation. They're right now very happy to, if they have a location, to rent it out. And to give also concessions to lessees. So generally, it's actually a very good time to get a franchise. Because if you buy it now, until you actually can operate it, it will still take another 2-3 months most likely. The construction, equipment, training, etc., etc. So until you are in operation, you most likely we are already in the new normal. Not anymore in any MGC or whatever we are into in what part of the Philippines. So it's really a good time right now to buy a franchise and to look at the opportunities, what you can see later this afternoon. Go for it. Why not? Don't be shy. If you have money to invest, go for a franchise. Safest way to invest your money, buy a franchise. And for anybody who wants to know more about franchise development, who are listening here and want to know how franchise development works, on day 2 of Franchise Markets Franchise Expo, I'm talking tomorrow for Aki Franchise Consultancy for my company.